Hello there, and then welcome to a brand new video. This is How Beyond Numbers, where we learn maths the easy way. And by the end of this lesson, you should be able to multiply decimals by a whole number and also multiply decimals by other decimals as well. So without much I say, let's quickly go into it. Okay, so to start off, these are three key concepts we need to know and understand before we'll be able to do what? Multiply these decimals. Now, the first one is, first of all, you need to ignore the decimal point. You see, so anytime you want to multiply decimals, either by whole numbers or by other decimals, the first thing you need to do is to ignore the decimal point. And then you multiply as if they were whole numbers. If you're able to do this, you now count the total number of decimal places in the numbers being multiplied. You see, so if you count this number of decimal places, you come back to the answer you have gotten and insert it. You do what? You insert it. This is the theory of what we want to do. Now let's solve and then see how we can apply this theory. So our first question here says we have to multiply 2.5 by 3. You have to multiply 2.5 by 3. So our first step is ignore the decimal point. So we come and then say, instead of 2.5 times 3, you're rather going to work for 25 times 3. You see, and 25 times 3, we know 3 times 5 gives us a 15. Then we carry our 1. 3 times 2 gives us a 1. Sorry, a 6. Then plus 1, we have a 7. So we know 25 times 3 gives us a 75. You see, and we come back and say, okay, so looking at the number 25, how many decimal places does it have? It just has one. It has just one number after the decimal point. So we come and say, okay, then it simply means that the 2.5 times 3 is actually not 75, but then there's one decimal place. So there will just be one number after the decimal place. You see, or we say we then come and move the decimal by 1 so that it comes to be what? Between 7 and then 5. You get it? There is one decimal place here. So our answer should also have one digit after what? The decimal point. This is all about multiplying what? Decimals by whole numbers. Let's try one last one and then we go to decimals by decimals. So over here we have what? 1.5 and we want to multiply it by 2. So as I said earlier on, we always need to assume there was no decimal. So that instead of 1.5 times 2, it becomes a 15 multiplied by 2. You see, and we know 15 multiplied by 2 gives us a 30. So you write that 30 over there. Then we come and say, okay, then it implies that the 1.5 times 2 that we want, let's first write the 30, but that is not the answer. We come and say there is one digit here after the decimal. So we also come and put one digit after the decimal here. Then that is all. You see, so then 1.5 times 2 is equal to what? 3.0 or 3. That's your final answer. So basically, this is how we multiply what? Decimals by whole numbers. Let's look at how we are going to multiply decimals by decimals. So for our first question here, where we are going to multiply decimals by decimals, we have 0.4 multiplied by what? 0.2. So 0.4 times 0.2. Sorry, 0.2. So what we want to do is take the numbers as if there was no decimal. You see, take the numbers without their decimals so that instead of 0.4, you have 0.4 times 0.2. And this is actually just 4 times 2 because 0.4 is just 4, 0.2 is just 2. You know 4 times 2 is what? 8. Okay, so this here could help us get our answer. So we come and say our 0.4 times the 0.2 is equal to, then put an 8 over there. But that is not your final answer. What you want to do is look at the number of decimal places, the sum of the number of decimal places. What I mean is, we had just one digit here. So that is 1. Then there's also one digit here. That is 1 as well. So we add them together. 1 plus 1 making 2. So it means we put a point here. You know, every whole number at all has a decimal number in front of it. And we are going to move it that number of times. 2 times. So we move it once and then 2. You see? So after every movement, you want to put a 0 in front of you. That is if there's no digit there. So that it then becomes what? 0. This is where our new decimal point is. So 0.08. I'm taking the movement once again. We want to multiply 0.4 by what? 0.2. Now this here has what? A digit. One number at the decimal place. Sorry, the fraction. And we also have 1 also over here. If we add that together, it becomes 2. So after our normal multiplication without the decimals, we got what? 8. So the 8 we have gotten, let me do that here. The 8 we have gotten, it has a decimal in front of it because it's a whole number. We are going to move that decimal to the left 2 times. To the left 2 times. So previously it was here. Our first movement will bring it here. So we put a 0 in front of it. Then our next movement will bring it here. We put another 0 in front of it. And that is going to give us a 0.08. That is just all. So we are saying that multiply without the decimal point and move the number of decimal points depending on how many you have in your numbers you are multiplying. So with that in mind, let's solve this other example over here. It says you have to multiply 3.12 by what? 1.4. You see? So as I have said, write your numbers as if you don't have any decimal. So 3.12, we are going to write it as 312, then times 14. You see? Then you do your multiplication. Now, using the column method, if you want to do your multiplication, 4 times 2 giving us an 8, 4 times 1, you have 4, then 4 times 3, there's the 12 over here. 1 times 2, you have 2, 1 times 1, 1, and then 1 times 3. I'm just going over this because that isn't the main thing we want to do here. Then you multiply by the 1, giving you all of this. If you sum them up, this is the answer you have, you see. Then we are going to say that, okay, our 312 times 14 give us what? 4,368. But that wasn't the question. Remember, that wasn't the question. So it means that our 3.12 times 1.4 is also going to give us a number, something like what we have above, something like this, 4,368. But that is not the answer. So with its decimal point here, we are going to move it a number of times. How many times? For this one here, for the 3.2 here, it has 2 digits at the fraction side, you see. And then for 1.4, it has just a digit. And then 2 plus 1 gives us what? 3. So we are going to move how many times? 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3. You see. So that the decimal point now comes to be between your 4 and then your 3. So that it becomes 4.368. And that there is our final answer. So with all that we have done, if you have understood, then this is a try work you can try just to test your understanding. For the first one, you have to multiply just these ones. Then the second one, you have a word problem. understand your word problem, write out your parameters, what you have from the word problem, and then you work it out. So this is how far this video is going to get. In our next video, we are looking at how to divide decimals. Stay tuned, stay blessed, and then happy learning. Bye-bye.